I just got the thumbs up from the crew back there, and it just made me smile for a moment. I like that. Good morning, everyone. My name is John. Welcome to our class here at the Life of Learning Foundation. Yep. All right, got a second thumbs up. Made me smile a little bit more. So welcome, everyone. Glad that you could join us for our class with Guy Finley this morning. If you are new, those of you visiting us online, I'll tell you a little bit about our format today. In a moment, Guy will speak for about 60 minutes on the topic that I think you can see on the screen below you, and then after that, we'll take a short 5-minute break, and then we'll come back for an open discussion where those of you online and those of us in the room are invited to participate. Ask questions about the material Guy just presented, share an insight, and see if together we can deepen our understanding of the material. And so that's the goal every Sunday. That's the goal every time we come here to this class. This session will last from about 11 o'clock and then right around 11:30 maybe even as well. So we hope you can stay for the entire session. And if not, these classes are recorded and archived on our GoToWebinar channel and on Facebook and YouTube. So again, you can come back and watch it at your leisure. To the students in the room, if you have a cell phone, just a reminder to turn it off if you would. And with that, I think we are ready to get started. Here is the title for the talk today and the key lesson, the first key lesson. The title for today is The Narrow Gate That Opens into a World of Living Light. And the first key lesson, the great universal misperception that secretly drives human conflict with all of its sorrow and pain is that the meaning of life is to be found somewhere outside of our own heart and mind.
Good morning. Good afternoon, good evening, whatever day or time it is, whenever it may be that you are tuning in. Ideally, you're with us live, but it doesn't matter when it is that you turn your attention to wanting to learn something that is new and true. What matters is the reason for why you tune in, either to the actuality of the moment that you're in or to the speaker as he would have you understand something about the way in which you see your life. You may not know it, and I will let you into a little secret. I doubt that it's any different for any man or woman who has perceived something of the truth. I struggle every time I get ready to speak, not because there aren't ample words, because God knows there are, but rather with why it is that I'm speaking the words that I am. What's the point of it? And repeatedly, it comes down to a perception ever clearer as it becomes that I'm not speaking in order to get you to see something that I'm describing in the words that I use. I'm speaking so that you might begin to understand you do not see it all, that you think you see, that you're identified with every thought that passes through your mind and every sensation that accompanies it. So that in the constant state of identification with the sensation of being someone who knows or who hates himself for not knowing, your life is squandered like the prodigal son, pouring her life out into this desert of endless thinking, ceaselessly hoping that somehow or other one of these thoughts is going to magically turn from straw to gold. and that you'll have the enrichment of being enlightened as you've imagined it, all the time unable to see that anything you imagine has no life in it at all. The problem is that you don't think that you're handicapped the way that you are because the habitual sense of self, this ceaseless state of identification, is so consistent that it never even dawns on a person to question how it is after all of these years. Your relationship to the moment is always determined for you before the moment takes place. And that all the moment does, as you try to change your moments, is simply change the kind of reaction you have, but not the fact that your reaction is defining yourself and the moment that you're in. Can you see that? That's why the accent is on new knowledge, new understanding. But unless you take the new understanding and use it like the oil it's meant to be in the lamp of this mind, so that you're always enlightening the moment by bringing your new understanding to it, nothing can change. And our minds are lazy. You have no idea how lazy your mind is. Jesus. It just wants to chew. Just like your body does, just wants to chew on something. And it's indiscriminate. You think McDonald's is bad food? How about McMind? It's impossible to resist, to have a negative reaction. It is impossible to have a lingering negative reaction unless, in the moment of that reaction, you have met a moment like that before. Because you can't resist or reject a moment unless you recognize it. So that when you resist or reject a moment, it seems to you that you're rejecting the condition. You're not rejecting the condition. You're rejecting what has come up in that consciousness, triggered by that moment, that is exactly like the experience you've had before, only with different moments. So that the rejection is not the moment that your mind points to. The rejection is the repetition of that consciousness experiencing itself again and again and not wanting to experience itself again and again. You think it's the person or the past that comes up and causes you to reject the moment summarily. Your mind is repeating what it has known, but not knowing it's repeating it because it's always identified with some other phase of whatever that particular moment is when it's brought up in that mind. Can you see that? And the queerest thing is that you would rather run yourself into the dirt than be quiet enough and passive enough properly to watch how there's this unending string of so-called unexpected reactions, and how every one of these unexpected reactions invariably is in the plus or minus, a want or not want category. So that our life is nothing other than measuring what we want and what we don't want and deriving an identity out of that reaction and believing that what we are reacting to is somehow separate from the nature doing the reacting. And it's not. It's one thing. And that's why it goes nowhere and creates nothing new. That's why there's no rebirth. Because you're so identified with a mind giving birth to itself, reincarnating itself, that you cannot see, that is what's happening to you at all points in time. That's what your mind never stops doing, is reinventing itself through reimagining some new circumstance that it will come out different than it did the last time it went into it. You see? So nothing changes other than what we think we're looking at in the moment when we're negative. Think with me. How can nothing change other than what we think we're looking at unless we're always looking at something we don't know is the same thing all the time? Always looking at some variation on the theme of a trouble or torment, some problem, and then comparing the moment that we're in with our expectation of it to suddenly this moment is nothing like what it's supposed to be. How can a moment be I don't know how to say that. How can a moment be like it's supposed to be? Can you see the impossibility of that? And yet, I always know how the moment's not supposed to be. Do I not? I'm not supposed to be sitting here. I'm not supposed to be struggling with this. I'm not supposed to have a person setting me off. I'm not supposed to be in this body. What the heck has happened to this body? Have you asked that question to yourself yet? So the truth is what? It's not the moment that we resist as we see it, the moment we see as responsible for our pain. What we're resisting in that moment is a level of consciousness that can't do anything other than resist what it responds to the moment with, which is always some form of conditioned thought or feeling, already part of the past, and then looking at the content of its own past, deciding the pain that it's in is because of the moment rather than it's resisting the content of itself. It doesn't want to be itself. That's hard for you to understand. It doesn't want to experience itself. You do not want to experience yourself unless you're eating, having sex, or planning a trip. Every other experience of yourself is filled with a constant measurement of how the moment was meant to be pleasurable, but isn't, but rather has produced some pain that now you're going to have to deal with again. And so you deal with it again, do you not? And does anything change in spite of the endless variation in the events themselves? Are not the negative reactions essentially the same, and the sense of self derived from those reactions, are they not essentially the same? So, transition. Here's an infinite number of impressions. This is something else we also don't understand. I often use the illustration because it's something that I just happen to love. I love being outside, especially when there's a breeze, because it's not just all of the movement, but it's the movement within the movement and the movement within the movement. So that you have the wind and the breeze that's invisible moving the trees that are visible. And then you have the leaves on the trees that themselves are never part of our attention because their individual quivering isn't part of the way in which we respond to the moment, so that we're quivering with the tree, so that we're experiencing our infinite capacity for perfect similarity. Because instead of our infinite capacity for perfect similarity with the totality of the moment, we're identified with a single element in that moment that, without understanding it, our mind has been drawn to for a specific purpose. Do you think it's accidental, out of all the things that are being given to you in every moment, the infinite number of energetic, visual, emotional impressions? Do you think for a split second that it's accidental that your mind falls on the way John looks? You look okay, by the way, John. I just thought I'd throw that out. You think it's an accident that your mind judges Chris when she walks through the door? Or that when you see somebody and they're talking that you have a certain reaction to it? Do you think that's accidental? Nothing's accidental about what your mind attends to, except for the accident that it leads to when you identify with where your attention has been placed by something that you didn't put there. You did not put your attention on the past. You did not put your attention on that regret. You did not put your attention on that wish that tomorrow you'll solve the problem that regret represents. That is not you that put your attention there. It is something in the moment that you're completely asleep to because you're identified with some other solution that you're working on. And in that moment, the whole self and its solution system is obliterated by the next impression that places you into the next problem that you're identified with and now must solve. How do I solve the resentment I feel towards this person? When you never caused that resentment and you never placed your attention on it to begin with. Rather, something put your mind right on the nature of that content with the past, with that person. And the minute it fell there, there was resistance. Imagine, I resist my own attention being placed on what my attention put itself on. Why? Because it creates a very distinct identity. That's why. Am I going too fast? And in an instant, there's this separate sense of myself reacting to what it sees as being other than itself. In an instant, a separate sense of self that is reacting to what it sees as being other than itself. When you judge someone, you don't think that you're experiencing yourself. You can't judge someone without experiencing your own negativity toward them. Because what is your negativity toward them other than the reason why you're judging them? Makes no difference what the cause is, whether validated or not, but that doesn't matter to the mind. It doesn't care whether its reaction is validated. What it cares about is that it's real for that moment. That's all it cares about. Do you see it? And so what happens? And you're going to write this down because we're going to come back to it. There's what? Reaction, yes? And we know there can't be reaction without what? Identification. So there's a reaction, but our mind says it's because of him, her, this or that. So reaction divides itself up into the one who's reacting and the thing that I'm reacting to. But if you've understood anything at all, and if you haven't, you can't go any further. You're not reacting to the condition, you're reacting to your consciousness as it measures that condition against what it wants and doesn't, and when it doesn't match up, there's resistance. So there's what? Reaction, instant identification, and then what happens? So you've got reaction, write that down, identification, and then what? Rush. Rush. Why? Because the minute I know what the problem is and I know who I am in that problem, now I've got a desire. I want to get rid of it or I want to get more of it. Reaction, identification, rush. If nothing else, just the rush of thoughts as it tries to weigh through all of the things it's measuring in order to come up with something that's reasonable, an action to take. So it's reaction, identification, and rush to resolve. Please, do you see that? This is why I said I'm trying to let you see something. Can't make you see what the speaker sees. Speaker's trying to show you that we should all be seeing the same thing. Because if we actually all saw the same thing, that there is this instantaneous reaction that we didn't create for ourselves, and that out of that reaction is born this identification, because the identification is born out of reacting to what we see as the problem. So we're all blind. If we all saw we were all blind, could we hate each other? Could you walk in and have a reaction and a judgment of someone if you knew that you were as blind as the person you blame for being unseeing? Isn't that what you find what's wrong with people? They just don't see. Yes or no? The fact that you judge them for being blind proves that you don't see. And when your conclusion is that they don't see, what's the solution to your conclusion? Rush to resolve. Get them to see where they're wrong. Open their eyes for them, which is violence. Do something to change that person so that they no longer cause this conflict in you, because surely you're not in conflict because of your nature. Without them, you wouldn't experience this conflict. Do you see all of this with me? Do you want to see all of this with me? Part of you does. I know that it does. So I've got reaction, identification, and rush to resolve. And what am I rushing to resolve? There's a problem. I'm in pain. That's the problem, isn't it? But we understand the pain that we're in is a conflict within ourselves. The pain isn't because of you. You just happen to be a secret agent of the divine, come to help me wake up to the fact that I walk around demanding that you and everyone else like you jump through the hoop that I hold up when I do. Isn't it irritating when people don't jump through your hoop? So that reaction, identification, rush to resolve, which is nothing other than what? The conflict, the choice, and the continuation, the reincarnation of that consciousness, and all it does is repeat, rinse, and repeat. Yes or no? So we live, whether we want to see it or not, and I hope that you do, under the law of a nature that without knowing it, guarantees the continuation of the very thing that it says it knows it doesn't want. You have to see that. You know what happens when you run into a moment and you even suspect to yourself that you've been in that place before? Do you know what happens? Something instantaneously replaces the awareness of that moment with what it tells you is the cause of that moment. And anything that's talking to you about the cause of a moment has no awareness at all of the moment, or it wouldn't get you to identify with what it points to as the cause. Because the minute you identify with something that points to the cause, you're separated and divided, and you're no longer aware of the whole. Do you see that? That nature, mechanically, habitually, instinctively, whatever you want, resists whatever threatens whatever its particular image it is and holds of itself. Now listen, that it doesn't know it walks around with a closet full of images that it's identified with. Not one of us thinks that we think that everyone on this planet is here to serve us. Well, there might be one or two of us here. Not one of us believes for a split second that whatever the reaction we're having, especially if it's negative, is because of something in our own consciousness. When I have a reaction, it comes with a conclusion. You don't have a negative reaction that doesn't come with a conclusion. Please, you see it or not? And what's the conclusion I have with every negative reaction? It's a no, my fault. Something's wrong. Again. The moment's wrong. I'm not supposed to feel like this. Isn't that the heart of it? I'm not supposed to feel like this. I'm not supposed to feel lonely. I'm not supposed to feel lost. I'm not supposed to feel angry. I'm not supposed to feel self-pity. I'm not supposed to be afraid. I'm not supposed to feel like this. But what we're looking at is what? What is the real reason I feel like that in the moment, a feeling that I don't want? What's the cause of that feeling? And the cause of it is a consciousness that is set against itself and experiences the conflict inherent in itself, and then takes the sensation of that conflict as being produced by something outside of it that it can then control and fix or otherwise change. And it's never been able to do it. See it? So every time we meet an unwanted moment, the extraordinary thing is that on one hand, there is a split second which if you were present to it, you would realize This is as old as dirt itself. I've felt like I don't want to feel this way for 1,000,000 years, because that consciousness is not just yours. It is a level of consciousness that only exists by being identified with its own negative conclusions. And yet, in a heartbeat, from something old that I don't want, it becomes an interest in something new. Doesn't it? Isn't it amazing how when you don't want to do something, even washing the dishes is better than what you don't want to do? Have you not noticed that? It's the most extraordinary thing. I'd rather pull my own teeth than go out and pull weeds or water some trees. But boy, if I'm sitting there and I've got some work to do and I don't want to do it, I don't know why I don't want to do it. I know it needs to be done. I'd rather go sit outside with the flies. And I hate the flies. What's that about? And I'm telling you what's it about. What's it about? I'm telling you what it is about. It's the way in which, despite the fact how many times we have changed, in quote, things, we've changed nothing. We've just put on a new set of clothes on that particular condition, reconfigured it so that the next thing we have to do will resolve whatever it is that's causing us to not want to be what we are and feel as we are in that moment. That's the real meaning of futility. Have you noticed that your frustration in life is growing, that the older you get, the more frustrated you are? Do you think that's accidental? Why is it that old people are so crabby? Honest to God, I'm actually asking a question. They're so crabby because they're so tense. They're so frustrated. Because it's beginning to dawn on them they're never going to change anything because they've never changed anything. But all they know to do is to think about how to change things, and they've run out of ways to change it. Another trip, another sort of food, another kind of clothing, another dream, another ideal, another job, another place, and all of this will go away. And does it? But see, you don't know that, because the minute that you're someplace you don't want to be experiencing yourself, this nature imagines another experience for itself, identifies with that experience, and you're off. Yes or no? As simple as a cupcake. Yeah. I exchange the possibility of discovering that narrow gate and a new life for a cupcake. For 10 cents, for the dollar that I think I'm supposed to have, when all the dollars that I have haven't changed one thing about the fact that I'm still greedy and a pig. Too strong, that language? I know it is for some of you. Go ahead and ask me if I care. No. And one day you won't care either. Not that you ever set out to hurt someone or be cruel, but you won't care, because all you're going to care about is what it takes for you to be present enough to recognize that you're blind and identified are the same thing. So in spite of all the changes, does anything change? Yes or no? Transition, nice deep breath. Please, I'll dial it back a little bit. Would you like to know the definition of insanity? No, you think you know it already. You don't. If you did, you wouldn't be crazy. The definition of insanity is to try to change a reaction during it or after it has taken place. That's the definition of insanity. Isn't that what you're always trying to do in the middle of a reaction? Change it? And we believe changing the reaction is changing what we identify with as a result of the reaction. Because I'm not supposed to have this reaction, so I believe I change the reaction by identifying with someone else or something else that wouldn't be like that. See, Christ would never have that reaction. Then I believe I didn't have it. A good person isn't greedy. I'm spiritual. I've been an aspirant for 498,000 years, and I'm still wondering where that 10 cents is somebody owes me. Why? Because that nature doesn't care what it's identified with. It just wants the experience of being for or against something so that it can be clearly defined to itself and for itself. And out of the clarity of that definition, it knows where to rush. It knows what it needs to do, and it has another new purpose. Please? So I have a reaction. And I actually try to change the reaction. But I believe that not wanting the reaction proves I didn't have the reaction, and that I'm better than the reaction I had. Don't you think you're better than the reaction you have when you're negative? Because isn't judging yourself the proof that you are better than the reaction you had? Doesn't that prove to you that? Or even more insane than trying to change the reaction is the idea that somehow or other I'm going to change the reaction after it took place. Because I treated you terribly. I was so cruel. You don't know how cruel you are. With God as my witness, you have no idea how cruel you are. And you think that's a negative thing. I'm saying, please God, one day may you see this cruelty that lives in this beast. It's cruel because all it cares about is itself. And itself that it cares about is not you. The self it cares about is the content of the past carried over in the form of a personality so identified with its experiences, it just wants it to go on and on, but it can't. And the reason it can't is because it isn't alive, so it has to create life for itself. And it creates life by resisting life. Imagine, it creates life by resisting the conditions that are meant to give it rebirth. Instead, it reincarnates itself through this constant sense of identifying with its own conflict. Do you not try to change reactions after they've taken place? What does it mean? It means I think through about how I reacted, because this is what I do. Now, I'm not present while I'm reacting, or the reaction wouldn't go on the way it does. So A, I'm not present to the reaction. I'm identified with what I'm reacting to. Please, am I going too fast? So after I'm identified with what I'm reacting to, and then in retrospect, I'm sitting there filled with this negativity, I think, Jesus, I shouldn't be like that. And then I decide that the way to change that event and that reaction is to go back and revisit it. And one way or the other, somehow I'm going to manage that nature, because now I see it. Have you ever thought to yourself, now I see it, and now that I see it, I can manage it. And you see nothing. What you're looking at, once more, is what you don't want to be. I'm looking at who I shouldn't have been. Yes or no? I'm certainly not looking at who I think I am. I'm looking at who I shouldn't be. Yes or no? And I think that looking at who I shouldn't have been proves that I'm not who I was, and that my resistance to looking at who I've been is going to change who I've been, when resistance ensures that who I've been will keep going. I don't know how else to talk. I don't know how else to share. It's right in front of you. The whole purpose of a school is just to crack open a student's eyes for a split second so that something they've never seen before can enter into them and reveal to them what they've never seen is true about themselves. So any attempt to alter the moment of this reaction is like an individual trying to walk into a set of woods that are nothing but shadows and rearrange the shadows so that they make them appear like light. Because isn't that what you're trying to do? Next transition. Our pain is not being created by the event that we resist and blame for it. What is our pain being caused by? What is this pain being caused by? Until you can understand quickly enough, nothing can happen. This pain, this conflict, is my own consciousness set against itself. But it doesn't know it's set against itself. That's why it's always finding something outside of itself to think about and I be identified with. The divided nature can't see that it doesn't want or that it wants whatever the moment is. What is the summary of all my reactions to any given moment? What is the summary? Here I am. Do I have the reaction of not wanting this moment because I'm intelligent? Or do I not want this moment because I came into it not knowing I wanted it to be other than that? Here's a moment I really want. I've got to get to it. Can I have a moment that I'm rushing to get to unless something in me is stabbing me and saying, you've got to get away from this? So here you have an understanding, if you can see it, that you can't serve two masters. For you'll love one and despise the other. You can't want and not want, as they exist, as they do in our present level of consciousness, are set in a perpetual battle with each other, each one trying to win the battle of the moment, when neither can win the battle because want and not want exist as a set of necessary opposites, active and passive, that are intended to bring about a new life, not reincarnate an old life born out of identifying with one side or other of those opposites. Please? But so identified with one side or another. Do you have an enemy? Do you have someone who we say, I have a pet peeve? How many of you have pet peeves? Yeah. You know what a pet peeve is? It's the way this nature explains to itself the violence in itself that always comes up whenever somebody does something that you don't want them to do. But I'm so identified with you as the source of my suffering, you as the source of my pet peeve, of my pain. I'm so identified with it that all I see is what this nature needs to see to validate the sense of self that believes it's other than what's bothering it. All I see. And I vacillate between all I see is what you did, what you could have done or shouldn't and did. All I see is that. And then by some fluke, by a certain set of conditions that belong to a set of laws that I don't have time to go into, a certain amount of energy can only go in a certain direction for a certain period of time. And then by law, it must shift. It changes. So here, all I see is this, and then that nature changes, and now all I see is myself, who's a terrible person for feeling the way I do about you. Now all I do, I'm identified with this. I don't see anymore. I'm this, I'm that, I shouldn't be like this. Completely gone from that nature is the you that was responsible for the ruining my life. So I go from this to that. And that can't see this. And this can't see that. But neither one exists without the other. And that vacillation that we're not aware of. I mean, have you ever gone from you are the worst thing that ever happened in this world to no, I'm the worst thing that ever happened in this world? Yes or no? You see you hurt somebody, and you believe that being identified with the pain you feel that you put on someone else is the proof that now you are other than that nature that punished that person. When there's no such thing as a you that's other than the person that punished you. The you that wishes you didn't is nothing than the flip side of the one who did it and now is identified with this side of the suffering instead of that side of the suffering. Is there really two sides to suffering, or is it a single suffering divided up into what is blamed and the nature blaming it? Are we communicating? I always have to ask that question. It's vacillation. It's endlessly identified. That's what spiritual sleep is. You've heard the expression spiritual sleep. I'm describing to you what spiritual sleep is, what it means to be hypnotized, all the old terms connected to any spiritual work. Every thought that passes through my mind is attended to by a nature that was created as that thought appeared in the mind and now must protect or otherwise pursue that thought in order to ensure the continuity of itself. Just endless. What's the solution? We've looked at, I hope that you've seen something about the depth and breadth of just how dark this mind, of the nature of the darkness in which this mind lives. Yes or no? And yet it said the light dwells in the darkness and the darkness doesn't understand it. What is this light that dwells in the darkness? It's the narrow gate. It's the narrow gate. It is a place that has never not existed in the darkness. In fact, in some ways, it is the place from out of which the darkness came. And it is the one hope that an individual has. That instead of walking through a world and rearranging shadows and then calling the rearrangement the new life, the new light, the new possibility, it is the narrow gate that comes with the sudden awareness that all of these shadows that are formulations of self and the various ways in which we identify with their characteristics, that all of that is the darkness, and not one part of it has light in it. There's no light in self-hatred. There's no light in regret. There's no light in guilt. There's no light in remorse the way that you suffer for what you said and done. If there was real remorse, you couldn't do it again, because real remorse would be what? Seeing, I of myself, I can't not do this, and yet it keeps coming up. When Paul said, I don't do the good but the evil, he had remorse because it was evident to him that he was captured in this nature, divided up into these opposites, and he yet could choose for himself the narrow gate, that which reveals these opposites as being the basis of our consciousness. Please. The narrow gate, the threshold to a new and higher level of consciousness that is always right there in the midst of our reactions. Now let's bring you in what you would call a positive way. How many of you have caught yourself in a negative reaction? And in the moment of catching yourself in that negative reaction, instead of the habitual identification, you at least were aware of the fact that something had come to claim your life, yes or no? Now, could you be aware that something has come to claim your life, that has claimed your life for centuries? Could you be aware of that unless in the middle of that reaction that was driving that formulation, there was a light that allowed you to see for the first time, sweet Jesus, I have been this kind of human being 1,000 times. I may not be able to not be that human being, but God, I do see it. There he is again. Not there it is again, and that's why I am the way I am. There it is again. And it is this nature that wants to blame things outside of itself for the pain that it is creating within itself by not wanting whatever that moment has brought to you. Yes? Yeah. Why is it narrow? Do we understand this light's never not there? I go before you to make the crooked places. What is this light that's never not there? This Christ. What is it? What is the nature of this narrow gate wherein which this light and this life is? Awareness. Well, we can call it awareness, but I'm asking you, why is it called narrow? Why is it called narrow? For one thing, because almost no one can fit through it. But why can't I fit through it? What's keeping me from entering into this narrow gate in which I see for a split second that what I'm blaming can't be separated from the consciousness that's holding you or its feet to the... Why can't I enter that narrow gate? Because you can't carry anything through it that belongs to the past. The past can't enter into the gate of the presence. The presence holds the past, but the past has no authority over presence. And we're in the presence of a pain, of a reaction, and what we're identified with. There's something in us that calls itself the presence, that understands the pain, and it's going to find a gate that we can go through, and on the other side of that gate we'll be free again like we were before he did this or she didn't do that. Yes? So it's narrow because why? Because I keep trying to go through it to the other side. But the other side doesn't exist without what I've imagined is the other side. Am I going too fast? So, sweet God, I see the gate, but I mustn't go through that gate, meaning I mustn't jump through the next hoop of thoughts that promises me the end of my torment is just on the other side of the next plan. So I recognize what the narrow gate isn't now, don't I? Could I recognize what the narrow gate isn't without something having brought me through a narrow gate that shows me that? Imagine this old rusted gate. I think this was what C.S. Lewis was alluding to in The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe with the closet the kids went through. This old rusted gate, and it's overgrown, and it's even taken on the color of the shrubbery, and all of the weeds and things have overtaken it, and it sits there right in plain sight if you could see past the rubbish. So if we understand, what do we understand? How are we now? Reaction? Then what happens? What happens? Reaction, identification, and then what? And then rush to resolve. Restore. Reaction, identification, restore. That's how it works, plain and simple. And that gate is just a big circle, isn't it? It's like the Twilight Zone. Or there was even a Star Trek like that. A lot of themes in the past where you walk through a gate thinking you're walking into a new world, and you find yourself back in the world you just left. Welcome to Hotel California. Welcome to Hotel Unconsciousness. So the new task, if we understand the old work, the old task is, what is it? Reaction, identification, restoration, rush. None of those do anything, do they? Anything in that work? Then what's our new work? I'm going to give you some new words. And by the way, if you've understood what I've identified as the real source of the problem, you'll see it. The only possible solution that leads us to what? That leads us to this narrow gate that I'm describing. So summary, our reaction brings up. The reaction is the identification. At that point, the reaction when it starts has no identification in it. But it is the result of something that has come into the moment with us that needs to change. Something acts on that which is old. Life acts on what is dead. Life acts on what needs to be transformed. So there is a natural reaction We're not talking about that natural reaction, because out of that natural reaction is what should be the awareness of these two sides. But for us, there's the reaction, and then there's identification with what this mind points to as being responsible for the pain that we're in, yes? And then out of that, one more time, reaction, identification, what? Get it fixed. So the new work is this. It's can't stop the reaction. MC Hammer said so. Reaction, and instead of identification, reaction, recover, and replace. Not reaction, identification, and restore, rush. Reaction, recover, and replace. Old theme, reaction, identification. New theme, reaction, recover. Recover what? Recover what? What has my identification blinded me to? What has my identification stolen from me in that moment? Replaced, by the way, what should be with what we hope will be when we finally rush to get everything fixed. So if it's reaction and identification, and we know that's a dead in the water, reaction and recover, what is it that has been taken from me when I'm identified with anything at all? My attention has been placed into what I'm told I need to be aware of. And when I'm told what I need to be aware of, I'm told what I need to do about what I've been shown as responsible. The reactions are going to come up, and I'm going to recover my attention. My attention's been taken to identify with something, hasn't it? So my attention goes where? My attention goes into the darkness that started the thing to start with. Now reaction goes to this recognition. Oh, I need to, you recognize this? Come to a stop. Stop, drop, and endure. I need to come to a stop. Why do I need to come to a stop? So that I can recover for a split second the fact that my attention has been placed on this problem outside of me. So that if I actually react and I recover the awareness of the fact of what my attention is being given to do and the sense of self that's being derived from that motion. I don't have other words to describe this. Bring up the second key lesson, would you please? True higher awareness knows that it is and that it isn't what it is aware of all at the same time. True higher awareness knows that it is and that it isn't whatever it is aware of and all at the same time. What does that mean? Higher awareness recognizes, yeah, this thing that's come up in me, I'm aware of that. That's part of this consciousness. But at the same time that the awareness knows that's part of its consciousness, it knows that is not the whole of its consciousness. The awareness is of the whole, not of the part. Our reactions tell us what the awareness is that we need to have so that we can fix the part and feel whole again. Are you following me? So we must go from this react, identify, and rush to react, recover, and have a new placement of our awareness. Are you aware of the fact that you rush when you have a reaction? Haven't you ever? Where am I rushing to? I want to get through. Can I get through the moment? I can't stand this moment. So much weighing on me. Yes or no? I talked about this yesterday. God, another test. I can't take another test. No more tests. No more problems. It's too much. Stop it. Stop it. Stop it. I'm dying. I can't take it. And you believe that what you can't take is what your mind is pointing to as being the weight you have to bear. The weight that you believe you have to bear is the weight of a mind telling you that your life will be unbearable unless you conclude that problem according to how you believe it has to be fixed. There is no other weight. And there's no other outcome, by the way. That's self-fulfilling, that prophecy. But on the other hand, to realize if I can reclaim my awareness, an awareness that as I am within it, I have entered into this narrow gate. That's what this light is. That's what this awareness is. It's the narrow gate. Because that narrow gate isn't in passing time, and that narrow gate isn't just the timeless nature revealing the seeming conflict between what is and what should be. That narrow gate is this sudden insight into the fact that the whole sense of myself and all that I'm identified with belongs to a nature that's in the dark that calls itself the light. And for a split second, when I enter that narrow gate into the awareness of the opposites as they are present, those opposites collapse back into a singularity and a new understanding of myself as provided by the light that is that narrow gate that now is revealing to me the truth of myself and the truth of myself that sets me free. Bring up the third and last key lesson. This is why nobody wants the narrow gate. Everyone wants to be illuminated, but few will dare to stand in the light of higher self-awareness and what it reveals to them about them. It's too painful not to have a future. It's too painful to think about giving something up. Who would I be without something to worry about? Who am I without my possessions? What am I going to be without a body? You're haunted. Literally haunted. And you believe you can outrun the ghosts of your own past. Because that's all that haunts you. There's a nature that carries itself over from moment to moment so that in carrying itself over, it can compare what it is and should be to what it doesn't like and ought not do. And in that constant conflict, have this consistent sense of myself, ceaselessly identified. There isn't one true teaching on this planet, no whether it was 20,000 years ago or today as I'm speaking it to you, that doesn't hold this immeasurable, incalculable, unimaginable idea of what it would be to be who you are without having a sense of self that you look to define you. That's this narrow gate. That's this living light. This living light doesn't have a past, but it doesn't mean it can't remember it. This living light doesn't have a future, but it doesn't mean that it understands the actions taken in it will determine what comes to you as a result of it. You have to put your toes in the water. Metaphorically speaking, spiritually speaking, you dream about the wine of the divine, let alone the flame of spirit. You haven't put your toes in the water yet. You put your toes in the water. You stand at that narrow gate when you at last recognize for the first time, or maybe the 100th time, that here I am. And I sure am tempted to want to get mad. I sure am tempted to want to go back into the past. I sure am tempted to want to protect this. I sure am tempted to get a little bit more of that. I'm so tempted. And instead of letting you meaning this consciousness, meet the moment of that temptation with, I shouldn't be like this. Did you know that when you think you shouldn't be like what you're tempted to be, you've been tempted to believe you're other than that consciousness tempting you? No, I'm just in it. Oh, please, and not in it to win it. I'm in it so that by the grace of God that has brought me to this moment where at last I didn't go to this identity and I didn't go to what I blame for this identity. Do you understand? They are the same. I didn't go to one or the other. I stayed with both at the same time. In the awareness of what I want to blame and the awareness of the self that believes what it blames is responsible for itself, and to see the whole thing at once. That is to react, and that is to recover, and that is to realize the narrow gate, as opposed to what's the old formula that doesn't work? React, identify, and rush. If you're rushing, you're identified. End of story. In fact, anytime you're in a negative state, you're identified. So if you're in a negative state or you're rushing towards a pleasure, what's left? Really, what am I left with? I'm always going somewhere. I always have tomorrow, if not 10 seconds from now. I watch some of you. You have no idea. You are so asleep and so rude that while I'm talking, I look at you and you look at your watch to see when I'm going to be done talking. But you don't know you're doing that because you're identified with a discomfort you're experiencing and your mind saying, if I could get out of here, I wouldn't be uncomfortable anymore. Please get out of here. Or start digging into this nature that doesn't know anything to do except to identify with the feeling of itself that it doesn't want, and then come up with a sense of itself it does downstream later when it's free. You can have that life, or you can enter this narrow gate, this timeless narrow gate. Do you understand? The awareness of time is timeless. The awareness of what is in time is timeless by its nature. Can you grasp that without thinking too much? That's the narrow gate. The awareness of what creates time is the narrow gate. You can be aware of what creates time. What is time? Where I am and where I don't want to be, where I need to get to, and how much better it'll be when I get there. Now that whole thing has to collapse. And when it collapses, there's the narrow gate that was always there where you were. You just didn't see it. Take a break. We'll come back and have our discussion.
Welcome back, everyone. Before we continue with our class and move to part 2, which is the discussion, I just want to share one announcement. It's a reminder. Those of you who've been following us recently know that in a couple of weeks now, we are going to have a very special event here at the Foundation. Special always for what happens here, but this time extra special because it will be the final one of these events here at the Foundation. And that is our Talks in the Pines with Guy. And the topic for discussion is June 20th through the 22nd. And the topic for the discussion is One Love, One Life, One Journey. And so I know that I have seen the kind of the reminders or announcements of people who are planning on attending. So we're looking forward to a great group here. And if you can't join us live, well, we'd invite you, please come join us. But if you can't join us live, again, it will be aired as part of our usual broadcasts and so forth online, so you can join us. But a very special event, a series of talks over Friday, Saturday, and Sunday that weekend. So if you're interested in knowing more about that, just go to guyfinley.org/one and you'll on our webpage and you'll get the information for it. But looking forward to that event. I have no other announcements, so we can move to the discussion, Guy, if you're ready to do that.
I am.
All right. Again, a reminder, those of you online, if you wish to participate, and we do invite you to do so, you can send in written questions through the chat areas or forums that you're on. And if you're on GoToWebinar, you also have the privilege or the opportunity to speak directly to Guy. And so you can just click your hand and you'll be in the queue, and we'll see who's there. Right now, our queue is wide open, and again, students in the room, at any time, if you wish to come up and speak, just move on up here, and I'll recognize you. So take a quick look here. As I said, we have James in the queue, just raised his hand, so we'll start with him. So James, good morning. I've unmuted you. Now you unmute yourself.
Good morning. Hi, Guy.
Hi, James.
Now, you've just spent a great deal of time explaining that there's no waiting, no rush to resolve a reaction. But I'm trying to understand the timelessness in relation to the parable of the wheat and tares, where they sow the bad seed and we wait for the seed to ripen. So what's really going on here? Is there a time involved in evil being manifested, or I just don't quite understand?
Well, James, you're starting with a misunderstanding to begin with, so how could you possibly understand what you're asking? The story of the separation of the wheat and the tares isn't waiting for the grain to be ripened. It's that they grew up together. Just as I've described, this consciousness that has the light in it, it has grown within this, it has given birth to this darkness, in a manner of speaking, but they appear together, the wheat and the tare. The wheat is the light, the nourishment, that which transforms. The tares are that which interfere with its growth. When you understand that, it is the light, it is that narrow gate that separates the wheat from the tares without you having to do anything. Because that nature knows what is nourishing, good, true, and timeless, and it knows what is not nourishing, good, and timeless. Anything that torments you, if you are unaware of it, is part of something that's completely useless, and anything you do to free yourself from that torment is useless. It's tare trying to give birth to wheat. It can't do it. So I hope that clears that up a little bit for you, James. Did it clear it up for you out here a little bit? Good. Let's go on.
Thank you. That's helpful.
Good.
Appreciate it.
That's what we want. I tell you, James, I swear to God, if every day it were possible for you to have one small insight of a true kind, your life would have been worth living. But for most of us, there are no small insights that come every day because we're too busy living from a small nature, enlarging itself by imagining a world that's going to claim, possess, or otherwise protect.
Hello, I'm Ellen. I had a small epiphany yesterday.
Well, we are all ears.
I
Show
think-
Ellen what it's like to be all ears.
And I think it's related in part to what you were talking about. So the last week or so, I've become painfully aware of this inner conversation that's always commenting on what's happening, justifying herself, explaining herself, and arguing with other people, having arguments
You
with
know,
other people.
Ellie, imagine for a moment, don't lose your train of thought.
It's already gone.
No, it's already good. I'll help you. Imagine for a moment, everybody knows what Ellen's talking about? What if you had a wand, and every time it started to talk to you, all you heard is blah, 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 blah. Blah, 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 blah. Blah, 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 blah. Blah, 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 blah. Blah. You'd wake up immediately, wouldn't you? Please continue. Blah, blah, blah.
Blah, 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 blah. All right, so I was in the middle of this really fascinating
Conversation,
painful argument, conversation. And the awareness just came there that I'm talking to myself.
Yes.
She's judging herself. She's explaining herself and justifying herself to herself. The divided mind is arguing with itself.
Blah, 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 blah.
Blah, blah, blah. And then, to make it worse, she's projecting all of that onto other people who aren't even there.
And they're going blah, blah, blah.
And they're
blah.
going blah, blah, blah. But she's creating a world of enemies when there's nobody there. It's all in here.
Yes. And in here isn't even Ellen, the way Ellen wishes she wasn't there.
Right. It's all this nature that you've been talking about.
Yes. Good, Ellen. You've worked your whole life for that.
Yeah,
Now build on it.
yes.
Hi, my name's Eric. And Kate and I actually watched a sitcom the other night that did that blah, blah, blah. It kind of illustrated
Seinfeld?
that very thing. No, it was
No. Okay,
a
never mind.
Canadian show. Speaking of the narrow gate, on Friday night I didn't get a chance to mention that I was trying to think of an image of self, like if self was manifested as an image, what would it be? And I always think of a castle with a moat around it, with a drawbridge, with a guard on the drawbridge. And then I thought of, beyond that, I thought of King Louis XIV. And he did some crazy things that would not fit through the narrow gate. I mean, it's human nature manifested to an extreme degree. Like, for instance, at each meal, he had 30 dishes served to him, even if he was just eating alone.
Oh, hold on. What's wrong? Where's the problem?
He would eat with his hands.
Yeah.
Yeah, what's wrong with that? He's the one, supposedly, this is what Grok told me. He's the one who came up with these extravagant wigs. He was the first to popularize them. And each wig would cost like an entire commoner's yearly salary, you know. But my favorite, again, to the narrow gate, was that he would wear these jewel-encrusted robes, with diamonds, emeralds, rubies sewn into it with gold embroidery. And these things would weigh 20 pounds, at least 20 pounds. And he would wear these in order to greet the public and visiting people of state or whatever. And he would need to have attendants actually help him move wearing these robes. And it's known that he couldn't wait to take them off when he was alone by himself. And I don't know, this is just the image that comes to me about how we're weighed down and can't move freely.
Yeah.
Because we're weighed down with what we think we need to look like. And
who we think we need to be.
right.
Yeah.
I have a written question I'll share next, but I also did see, Denise, you raised your hand and then your hand went down, so if that was a mistake and you want to speak to Guy, please try again. But here's a written question from Sindasani. Sindasani says, my sincere inquiry to Guy is, what is the experience of myself? Is it something that you find challenging or repeating over and over?
Well, I don't know you, Sindasani, to speak about what my experience is of you. Are you asking me what is the experience of myself? What use would that be? My sincere inquiry to Guy is, what is the experience of myself? Or is he saying, what should be the experience of myself? Is it something that you find challenging or repeating over and over? Sindasani, what is the experience you have of yourself? Well, you know what it is. It's constantly feeling like you have to pass a test and that you have to repeat the same thing over and over again. It's such a strange thing. We ask people to tell us what our life is like. Like I'm not in my life to see that virtually my eyes open in the morning and they're cast out over these long, deep waters to see what may be coming in a wave of some kind? Are you kidding me? And a wave that doesn't exist other than your own apprehension of what may be washed away if that wave reaches the shore of yourself? Do I need to think to myself, I wonder if that's healthy or good for me? Or can I see for a fact my mind unattended looks across the waters and finds something that's a problem? Or a pleasure that I need to get to so I can rush across the waters and escape the place I don't want to be, which is myself. The condition that's coming I don't want is myself. It doesn't exist without myself. And the condition that I'm trying to get to doesn't exist without a self that doesn't want what it's imagined may be coming to it. When is this going to sink in? And you know why it doesn't sink in, Sindasani? Not to judge yourself, neither are any of you in here. It doesn't sink in because you don't have a self outside of that divided mind. Something to be identified with. You do not have a self. I wrote this down. I don't know whether I'm going to use it or not for the talks in the Pines, but I think it's such a good description of what are we meant to have as the experience of ourselves. You might want to write it down. Again, I might repeat this during the talk in the Pines. What greater art form is there than to be yourself? A new form, an immaculate conception, moment to moment. What greater art form is there than to realize that you are meant to be an immaculate conception, made new moment to moment to moment, so there's no residue left over to measure the next moment with? What do you think the immaculate conception is? It's that which comes forth without cause. Because the cause and effect that produces life is constantly being married and brought together to bring forth something new out of it. You and I are meant to have a moment-to-moment life where nothing is old in it. It doesn't mean you don't have memory. It doesn't remember you don't know how to make a cold call and act as you've been taught to manipulate people to get whatever results you believe you want. You're fully conditioned for that. But that conditioning has no room in it, none, for what's new. Because what is conditioned can only seek itself in another form and call the experience of that new. So that's the answer, Sindhasani. What greater art form is there than to be yourself, a new form, in that narrow gate? That immaculate conception that exists between the body of awareness that holds the opposites, allows them to be brought together in a union so that out of them something altogether new can appear.
Hello, my name is Patricia. My favorite line in this talk was, you can't take the past through the narrow gate because the present moment, you can't take the past into the present moment. I just love that. And yet, the present moment holds all of time.
Correct.
And it just gave me such a vast view. I just loved it. That's all.
It loves you. Just do what you always do to John.
I did.
Kick him out of the way.
I did. Hi, everybody. My name is Deborah. I don't know if you were here and you remember, I talked about a neighbor that came up wagging her finger at me with an attitude the other day.
Oh.
Yeah.
Everybody wag your finger at Debbie with an attitude.
Well, I gave her attitude right back. That wasn't a good thing. So since that time, I thought things were okay. I went and talked, and things seemed better. And I was sitting on my front porch that Charlie had made for us, and these same people are having this weekend a garage sale, and there's junk everywhere on their front yard.
Give us a moment to take in the depth and breadth of this horror.
Now, mind you, these are the kind of people that are growing pythons in their house. They're breeding pythons. So just so you get a picture of what kind of people.
So hold on a second. You mean to be careful. You just said that these people are making pipe bombs in their house?
No, pythons.
Oh, pythons.
Pythons.
Phooey.
Snakes. that they feed rodents
mice
to. Yes.
Say it, and they feed them mice.
Mice. So, anyways, here, let's get to the point, okay? I was sitting there saying to John, there's no one there. They're just not there. And then it hit me like a ton of bricks. The person that was saying, there's no one there, there was nobody there saying it. They were two machines. It really was stunning to see.
There was an identity there that had Debbie's name,
Yeah.
but there was no real Debbie there. I'm just clarifying for everybody.
Sure. Yeah. No different than what we're judging is this nature that's judging. It's
Emptiness fills itself with emptiness repeatedly and must continue to do so, so it doesn't know it's empty.
Yeah.
I have a quick clarification I'd like to ask you about. And it speaks to what Deborah was saying and what Ellen was saying. You said in the talk, there it is again, speaking of this nature.
Mm-hmm.
And then you said, not he, not she, not they, not we, it.
Yep.
And it really struck me. And in Deborah's story, it's not a she or a Deborah talking to them. It's it
Judging itself,
judging it.
trying to change itself and change all the other its.
Yes. So important, that shift.
This is why the Addams Family was a real groundbreaking television series. You cousin it.
Hasn't it?
What did it look like?
But it looked crazy. But because I'm noticing with myself, speaking third person, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Have to be careful.
Yeah?
That's the subtlety right there. So I was noticing even when Ellen, because after you said it, was saying she, there's still that's a difference than saying it. You see it.
Well, her intention was correct.
You could see the intention.
Yeah, and whether she was identified or not, that's not your business.
But for me, I could see
Well,
where that could be a very slippery slope.
Clearly it could.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Good.
All right, Denise, Kate has told me you'd like to speak, and so let's see if we can find you here and unmute you. Hello, Denise, are you there?
Hello. Hi, hello.
Yes, you're here.
I finally figured it out. Okay, so everyone else has kind of covered what I wanted to say, but I will add that Denise has had the same conversation, discussion, encounter with a particular person my whole life. And so this idea of the narrow gate speaks to me because I've stood there at the opening for so long.
Exactly.
And yet it is, there it is again. I'm there and I'm catching the negativity. I'm trying to stay calm, which maybe is part of the problem. Because of this work, I've been able to let go of the negativity after the interaction, but I don't think that I'm doing it right because it's still, I'm carrying the past with me, the memory of all these 10,000 repetitions of the same discussion. So, you can't stop your memory of that. And if that's carrying the past, then how do I ever get over that?
No, the memory doesn't carry the past. The past is memory. Memory is the past. You're looking at the wrong thing. The carrier is that nature. The carrier is a nature that doesn't know how to relate to the present moment without relating it to the past. And that relationship between its preference and the past or the present that doesn't satisfy it is the sense of self that it derives every time it doesn't match or meet what's expected. To enter the narrow gate, Denise, means to catch yourself standing in front of it and to dare to drop the whole thing, not think about whether I should be this way, not imagine how it might be if I walked through the gate, not wonder what it would be like to live without this nature, but for a split second to see with total clarity, I am the sum of this moment as it's occurring, and that the only way I'm ever going to transcend it is to see with that clarity. God, Denise loves to visit this stuff. She loves to hate. She loves to be afraid. She loves to judge herself. And then don't judge what you see. And leave it there in that light, not in the darkness of a decision or a justification for its appearance. Leave it in the light, which means there's no self, wanting or not wanting. There's just the whole of the self in that narrow gate, seeing itself in the light that is the gate it just walked into. You're going to have to experiment, and it means risk, Denise. You know, you're not, when God gave you a list of things to do, your idea of risk was like way down at the bottom of that list, as it is with everybody. Risk it.
Okay.
You know, we reach very important points in our spiritual work. Like right now, Denise is on the threshold of something. She can't stop doing the evil she wishes she wouldn't do, but she can't do the good that she knows how to do. And so there's a crucible. It's what you do in the moment of the appearance of that crucible that determines whether something new comes out of it or the elements remain uncombined and change nothing other than the forms they will again assume when that crucible appears again. You're on, T.
Good morning. My name is Tony. And it's funny, but I had something occur this morning that it kind of explains this talk in a simple way, but yet it's something that the more I thought about it, the more I realized is experienced all over the place. It's I had a text message that came in early today from someone who's been a friend of mine for many years, whose daughter is graduating from high school and moving on. She's decided she's going to take off immediately and go do something she wants to do. She wants to go to school and learn something. So the text went something like this. I just woke up, I'm all stressed out because my daughter says, on the one hand, you know, she's leaving and I'm really excited for her and I'm really happy for her. And on the other hand, I am really suffering some pain that the only way I can express it is, it comes out as, why are you leaving me? Now, I really wanted to say something to her to help her see this, right? And I realized the more that I just stayed with this, I didn't respond. And I thought of it, and I thought, how many people in this city are going through that right now? And not everyone, to whatever degree, you know. Some people are happy, they pack their kids' bags, you know. So nice you were here, I don't think you were mine. But and then all over the United States, all over the world, depending if you believe in extra beings and other planets, I mean, the amount of suffering that goes on over something like that, it's unbelievable. Of course, we just think of it in our world. And I thought, what a great opportunity to see, because I got to see what she's experiencing from a completely different perspective. You know, for the first time ever, and I've been coming here for 30 years, for the first time ever, I was seeing what we learn here, how we argue with ourselves, how we suffer unconsciously these moments that come up. They're born out of something that has honestly nothing to do with us in a sense. Why wouldn't you be happy for your child moving on? Why would you feel a loss of some kind that painful because they're moving on with their lives, something that is natural? And if you think of it from your life, from when you did it, you were looking forward to something in your life. You were growing. I haven't responded to her yet on this text because I didn't want to be stupid and go, oh, just grow up, come on. Get through it. When in actuality, it's a tremendous opportunity for her for the first time ever to see what's going on inside of her, what goes on inside of all of us through this one moment in time in her life. That it's not coming to destroy her in any way. If anything, it's coming to help her see herself a little bit.
A 1,000 times a day, in fact, with every reaction that's negative, you don't hear that nature saying, "Why are you leaving me?" And you know why you don't hear the nature say, "Why are you leaving me?" Because you think you're owed what that thing is or what it gave you. You owe me. Do you know what I did for you? You owe me. Do you know how much love I've shared with you? You owe me. God gave you to me so that I could have you in my life and help you to grow. So you're selfish for leaving me. You can fill in 100,000 different things. Why are you leaving me? The doctor just told you you're going to die. Why are you leaving me? What? Well, I'm owed this life. Why do my finances creating? Why are you leaving me security? And the wise man says, go. Get thee hence. Go on. That's what the wise person does. Even though they may choke on their own words, they understand that built into this unconscious nature is the assumption that it's owed something by God, that it's owed something by God's creations, it's owed something in its relationships. And you do not know that about yourself, nor how you feed those people the very thing that when they finally turn on you, you can't understand why they're not doing what they owe you. Don't send that. But send what you understand, if you choose to send anything at all.
Fiona has raised her hand in the queue, so we'll go to her next. Good morning, Fiona.
Fiona. Fiona?
Fiona, are you there? I see your hand raised. There you are.
Hello. Guy, I really want to just talk about when you have this reaction. It could be really long term. It could be about family members that have been maybe, people generally behaving appallingly for many, many years. And that reaction is not you, it's your own nature working against itself when you judge them. But then also seeing that it's actually feeling that it's not something that you can just go, oh, well, that's not really me. I've been through the years feeling it, like really, really feeling it and allowing it to be there. Yeah. And still kind of falling into it, because to get to the really nuts and bolts, if you have something that's really, really seriously going against you, maybe your life is in danger, and you really feel like it's a turmoil, it's a huge turmoil, regardless how you feel it's right or wrong. And so seeing it.
Let me stop you.
And feeling it.
Let me stop you so that you won't do yourself any harm. You're ahead of me. There comes a point when out of desperation, I have to believe that not only is this feeling legitimate, but I'm right to have it. Because I've had it for 50 years. You betrayed me when I was 4. I'm 74 now. 70 years I've been carrying around the fact that you stole my yo-yo. It's not complex. In the light in this place that we've called this narrow gate, which is the awareness of that which I blame and the nature doing the blame, without allowing this vacillation to run from my justification for why I have this enmity to loathing myself for being someone who carries the enmity with them. If I'm present enough, which is that narrow gate, I'm not on this side or that side. I'm in the awareness of both sides at once. And it's as simple as this, Fiona. How does it feel to hate? How does it feel to have an enemy? What's it like to carry again this conflict into this moment when a moment before I didn't have it, and now the thing's filled with all kinds of ugliness? Is how I feel ugly? And if it's ugly, do I want to embrace what is ugly? Do I want to drink from the ugliness? Do I want to derive my identity from what's ugly? Beauty knows what ugliness is without judging it or condemning it. You know what ugliness is. That's why you laughed when I said I don't want you to harm yourself any further by trying to justify what you know is ugly and wrong in you. Not negatively ugly, not negatively wrong, just wrong for the soul. Wrong because everything in me that was there in that moment that brought my attention to it, that in the moment of my attending to it, I was brought so that I could see, Jesus, what is this again? As opposed to, oh, there it is again, and now I know what I have to do, even though nothing I've done for 100,000 years has changed one aspect of that violence and that conflict that I feel. You can't imagine it, and I know that you can't, what it would be like to have no enemies in your life. Because enemies appear just like that. It's not a person. The news is your enemy. The way you look in the mirror is your enemy. That golf shot you hit should be your enemy. John and I played yesterday. It couldn't have been worse. But ask me if we were negative. Well, John was, but there's not much I can do about it. No, in that narrow gate, you see. You can't see anything outside of it. So the task, as distasteful as it is to see your limitation, your anger, as loathsome as it is, it becomes your passion to want to see, because you know that what you are given to see is given to you by a nature that knows it's not what it's looking at, and that it can be transcended if you'll stay in that place that reveals it to you. So if you're still there, Fiona, have we communicated?
Yes, definitely. Seeing all of that.
Yeah, start over.
It is huge.
Yeah, just
seeing more and more all the time.
It is, Fiona, with God as my witness. People make this spiritual life so bloody complex. That's why I started the talk with what I did. For us, complexity proves that we understand. Complexity is the proof we don't understand, which is why the mind's always adding elements to what it's considering, because the more complex it is, the more important it must be. And of course, the more important it is, guess what?
I'm right in the middle of it.
Yes, you are. And that's great, Fiona. You know I love hearing from you. Come on, John.
Thanks.
Thank you, Fiona. I do have a written question from he or she identify themselves as higher self. So, hello, higher self. And they ask, hello, Guy. I suspect my forever career stress and woes are related to this lower consciousness's smoke and mirrors, identification, and refusal to release identities. Do you have any comments?
Does a bear sleep in the woods? Shakespeare, amongst other enlightened individuals, was a master of allowing the individual who was reading what he would write, not for the sake of the piece he was writing, but to give them a glimpse of the opposites in a single sentence. The purpose of that, it's like a koan. To understand whether a tree falls in the woods and makes a sound if there's nobody there, you need to have an awareness of this mutual dependency, that one doesn't exist without the other. You need to see that one doesn't exist without the other. You think that your unhappiness exists separately from the self that's unhappy. It's the condition that makes me unhappy. My relationship, Denise thinks her problem is the relationship, past, present, or future. Relationship doesn't exist without that which is in relationship with it. It's one thing. I need to see that. They're right in front of you all the time, the opportunity to see this. For me, when I was young, it happened quite a bit. I can't explain why. One of the most crucial moments in my life. I was fortunate enough, I couldn't have been 21 or 22 years old. I'd been signed to Motown Records. I was already successful as a composer, writing music and all the rest of that. And I remember that I can still I can actually see the whole scene. When you really see something, you never forget the moment in which it was seen. I'm sitting at my piano, and I start banging my head on the piano. Not because I was one of those people. I was trying to write music for some Mad Max thing. I was banging my head because if I didn't create, I was going to lose everything I had. So the thing that I loved the most, I now loathed. How can I loathe something that I loved? How could that which I imagined my whole life would liberate me, make me someone of consequence, prove this emotional upwelling that lives in me to be valuable? And there I am, and now I have to perform like some kind of chimp. And the pain of the moment was that I know I'm not a chimp, but nor did I want to be a chump who gave up on the very thing that was giving him a house in Malibu and all the other accoutrements that come with being someone accomplished. But I knew I couldn't escape the fact that there's no bloody way on this planet that a human being can be compelled to do what gives them freedom. And the clarity of that is what set my feet on this path, although everything had been all along. I can't tell you how many times that happened to me, moments just like that. I used to think I was cursed. And in a way you could say I was cursed by the divine to see that I was cursed and didn't know it. And if it weren't for the divine showing me where it was that I was a captive of this unconscious nature, I would not be sitting here talking to you, nor would I be someone who can tell you, relatively speaking, he doesn't have an enemy in his bones, including the things that he thinks he has to serve. You believe you have to serve a master. You believe you have to serve a master, and your master changes depending upon the conditions that trigger the consciousness in which all of these masters, the legion of these masters live, all these various eyes. Freedom is the realization you have one thing to serve and one thing to serve only, and that's that moment when that narrow gate appears for you to step into it so that you can see your true master has made the way straight for you and put the light there for you to see where you're meant to go and who you're meant to be. Is there more?
Just a comment. Just a brief comment. I think we can end with this comment from Judith that just came in. She said to Guy, "Your reference to the gate reminded me of the teaching of Jesus about a camel passing through the eye of a needle."
It is what Christ was talking about. The camel is this desert crosser, is this naph, is this nature, is this personality. Personality cannot enter the narrow gate any more than Moses could enter the kingdom of heaven. And Moses could enter the promised land. Can't take the past into the promise with you. See you later.